Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into the truly fascinating and honestly lethal environment of the Eurasian steppe. We're going to discover exactly how our ancient ancestors engineered their survival. We've got some incredible data and evidence to look at today that completely rewrites the story of human resilience, so let's get right into it. I want you to take a second and think about the absolute coldest you have ever been. Maybe scraping ice off a windshield, waiting for a bus in January, or walking across a freezing parking lot. Well, your ancestors would have honestly laughed at you for calling that cold. The truth is, you've never been truly cold. Not once in your entire life. We are talking about an ice age winter, where the cold doesn't just chill you, it actively hunts you. Look at this number. Minus 40 degrees on the Eurasian steppe. This is the precise temperature where exposed skin literally starts dying within minutes. It's a kind of cold where every single breath you take causes physical pain in your lungs. If you were to take a modern human and just drop them into this environment unprepared, they would absolutely be dead before sunrise. There's no toughing it out. And yet our ancestors didn't just survive this brutal environment. They thrived in it. They built homes in it. Okay, so let's smash a massive misconception right out of the gate. The popular myth is that we were all just shivering cavemen, right? Hunched around a tiny, smoky fire, barely scraping by. But the reality? Your ancestors were actually advanced thermal engineers. They were navigating their way through the Ice Age with a level of technical sophistication that modern Arctic specialists have literally studied, replicated, and sometimes even struggled to improve upon. Section 1. Geothermal engineering below ground. So, contrary to popular belief, they mostly didn't live in caves. Instead, archaeologists have found these circular depressions dug deliberately 6 to 8 feet into the earth all across Russia and Eastern Europe. And the temperature differential here is massive. Down at that depth, the Earth's thermal mass traps heat, keeping the ground 20 to 30 degrees warmer than the freezing air above it. They logically deduced the absolute best way to survive the freezing air was to just go completely below it. By utilizing the Earth itself as a natural thermal resource, effectively acting as a giant insulating battery against the surface frost, these ancient builders were applying the exact same principles of modern geothermal physics. And honestly, the mind-blowing part? They figured this all out 200,000 years ago, sitting in a frozen landscape, without a single textbook or physics degree in sight. Section 2. The Science of Insulation. Jumping forward to about 26,000 years ago in the Czech Republic, we see an ancient shelter wall built in 3 very distinct layers. And as you can see, this perfectly mirrors the physical engineering inside modern homes. The innermost animal hide acts as a vapor barrier to reflect radiant body heat back into the living space. The middle layer of dried grass and moss creates pockets of trapped dead air, which is basically nature's perfect insulating foam. And that outermost woven reed layer, it blocks wind shear while remaining breathable. This wasn't some random pile of debris. This was deliberate, applied material science. Section 3. Mammoth Bone Thermodynamics. If you thought digging holes and layering moss was clever, wait until we look at how they applied these physics 15,000 years ago in Ukraine. They used the ultimate Ice Age building material. Picture someone standing out on the frozen steppe, looking at the massive skeleton of a woolly mammoth and thinking, you know what? I can build a house out of this. They used skulls weighing over 200 pounds each as solid foundation blocks. Then they took the massive curved tusks and bent them to create complex dome frameworks. It is just an awe-inspiring leap of architectural logic. And their construction methods were incredibly meticulous. They tightly packed the gaps between those large foundation bones with hundreds of smaller bones just to block drafts. Then, the entire structure was wrapped in heavy stitched mammoth hide. Even the shape of the dome itself was specifically engineered with aerodynamics in mind. This ensured that high-speed winds would blow snow right off the structure rather than letting it accumulate and crush the roof. So the crucial question is, how well did this actually work? Well, when modern researchers built experimental reconstructions of these mammoth bone houses, the thermal performance data was absolutely shocking. A modest fire inside held the interior a staggering 40 to 50 degrees warmer than the deadly air outside. We're talking about Stone Age builders matching the exact performance of 21st century Arctic shelters that rely on industrial insulation and electric heating. But inside, keeping that fire going required some serious resource management. They used a planned layout with a primary central hearth and secondary hearths to create specific heat zones. Out on the treeless steppe, wood was obviously pretty rare, so they developed alternative fuels. They used processed mammoth dung and even bone. The chemical analysis shows was specifically treated for a controlled heat output. They were acting as meticulous energy engineers. Section 4. Solving the ventilation problem. Okay, so we have this tightly sealed, perfectly insulated bone house with fires burning inside. But that brings us to a silent killer that modern Arctic engineers actually still struggle with today: moisture. Every single time you breathe, cook, or just exist in an enclosed space, your body generates water vapor. The physics of sub-zero temperatures dictate that if that vapor gets trapped inside the walls of your shelter, it freezes solid. Over time, that expanding ice literally destroys the structure from the inside out. They had to figure out a way to get the moisture out without letting the deadly cold in. And here is exactly how they solved it. They essentially mastered fluid dynamics to create a completely passive ventilation system. Step 1. Small openings down near ground level pull cold, fresh air in. Step 2. The heat from the hearths, along with the trapped moisture, naturally rises toward the ceiling. Step 3. Large engineered openings near the apex of the dome vent that destructive vapor safely out into the night. It's passive air circulation functioning flawlessly inside a bone house 15,000 years ago. Section 5. The culture of warmth. So, what did all this meticulously constructed warmth actually buy them once the sun went down and the deadly storms raged outside? Well, it bought them time. Specifically, time in the middle of the night. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans actually didn't sleep in one unbroken 8-hour block like we do now. They practiced a biphasic sleep pattern, which is actually the default human biological rhythm. There was an initial sleep phase of 4 hours, then a waking period of 1 to 2 hours in the dead of night, followed by a second 4-hour sleep. That waking hour in the warm bone house, that was a pivotal moment for humanity. To understand why this matters so much, we can look at anthropologist Polly Weissner's findings from modern communities who still live close to this original human pattern. During the harsh daylight hours, conversation is totally dominated by survival. 80% of daylight interaction is purely about practical logistics, hunting, and securing resources. It is strictly business when the sun is up. But look at how dramatically that flips at night. During that waking hour around the hearth, 81% of conversation was dedicated to stories and myths. The hearth basically became the original theater and the original classroom. Safe inside their engineered warmth, while the ice ruled the dark outside, they finally had time for the stories, the art, and the culture that fundamentally made us fully human. And absolutely none of this was accidental or just reactive. Look at these other logistical achievements. Building just one of these bone houses took 8 to 10 adults working solidly for 2 to 3 weeks, meaning they were planning on strict seasonal calendars months in advance. They utilized underground permafrost chambers connected directly to their homes as natural freezers to preserve meat. And they engineered layered composite clothing weighing up to 15 pounds. They weren't just scrambling to survive day by day. They were executing complex, long-term operational plans with extreme precision. Section 6. The Legacy of Ice Age Engineering. As the ice eventually retreated, the climate warmed up, and the forests expanded, this incredible knowledge system was gradually set aside. It wasn't lost to some huge catastrophe, it just simply became unnecessary in a warmer world. But its brilliance remains absolutely undeniable today. I love this quote. When modern Arctic engineers studied these ancient remains, they described being genuinely unsettled by what they found. Not just academically impressed, but unsettled, because the solutions our ancestors engineered were so flawlessly precise and well-reasoned. We inherited warmth from people who conquered the cold through sheer intellect. Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. If we were this wrong about the whole shivering caveman trope, what else have we totally underestimated about the minds that built our world? The genius of the deep past is written right there in the ice and bone, if we're just willing to look closely at it. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep questioning what you think you know.